And what was Hillary Rodham like as a kid?
Well, I was a pretty ordinary kid. I was growing up in a middle-class suburb of Chicago. It was an all-white suburb. I lived 3 blocks from my elementary school, so I walked home for lunch every day. I lived 6 blocks from our church.
This is Ozzie and Harriet.
It was Father Knows Best and Ozzie and Harriet and Leave It to Beaver all rolled into one.
Did Father know best?
In our house he did. Yes, indeed. And never let you forget about it. You know, my father was a very strong-willed man who cared about his family.
He was a tough cookie.
He was a tough bag of cookies. He was a tough guy. You know, he was a football player. He played football at Penn State. He was a boxer. He boxed in college. He went to college on a football scholarship. He jumped a freight train after he got out of college to find work in Chicago. He was a really self-made, resilient, hard-working man of his time.
When you were a teenager, was there a piece of clothing? Was it makeup? What was the fascination for Hillary Rodham?
Well, I was the president of the Fabian fan club. There were 3 of us in it. I spent a lot of time with my girlfriends at slumber parties where they gave up on trying to teach me how to fix my hair. So, I mean, there were things that they were fascinated in that I was just never very good at, but they were kind to me in their supportive ways.
I was going to ask you if it was Elvis or Ricky or Pat, but for you it was Fabian.
Well, it was, but I became a devoted Beatles fan. I will never forget, you know, we were all together at my friend Betsy's house watching the Ed Sullivan Show when the Beatles came on. I mean, that was a singular, indelible memory in my life. One good thing about both my sort of rough around the edges father and my resilient mother is there were no gender differences. If we were going to play football, we all played football. You know, I was expected to compete. If I was going to go out and play with the boys, then don't cut them any slack and don't expect them to cut you any slack. And that was just inherent, and partly because my father had brothers. He never, you know, was around girls as growing up as much. He was just a real boy's boy. So for him, it was, well, yeah, that's what you do. You go out and life is tough and you do the best you can. And for my mother, it was life's unpredictable. There is no security. You have to be able to stand on your own 2 feet. You can't expect other people to take care of you. And so it was a great but unusual message for a girl of that time to actually incorporate.
True that you wrote NASA at 14? Wanted to be an astronaut?
I did. I wrote to NASA and I said, you know, what do you have to do to become an astronaut? That was my question, because I wanted to prepare myself. And
they said, be a man.
Yeah, they said, be a man. They said, we're not accepting girls. And I was crushed. I couldn't believe it. I mean, so I was what, 8th grade? I had never had anybody tell me I couldn't do something because I was a girl. I'd had boys on the sports field make fun of me as a girl, but I made fun of them. I mean, you know, it was give and take. But to have my government tell me there was something I couldn't do because I was a girl was shocking to me.
The Rodham household was politically conservative.
My best friend and I became, quote, Goldwater girls. We got to wear a cowboy hat. We had a sash which said, you know, what did AUH2O. I mean, it was really a lot of fun because we went down to little headquarters in my hometown and, you know, stuffed envelopes with people.
Hillary Rodham went on to Wellesley College, where the Midwestern conservative girl had trouble fitting in with the Eastern liberal college elite.
When I got there, I thought I was totally out of place. I thought every other young woman was, you know, smarter, more sophisticated, more attractive, more everything. I mean, it was a real kind of crisis, you know, of identities. I wanted to come home. I called Home Collect. I will never forget, I was in my dorm room sobbing. I said, I can't do this. I will never, ever be able to do this. I want to come home. And my mother said, don't you dare. And she said, if you stay till the end of the year and you still don't like it, then we'll talk about it. But you cannot quit. You cannot give up. You have to stick it out. I had to really sort of dig deep inside myself and sort of say, who am I and what am I trying to do, and go out and try to do it.
She went through a political transformation at Wellesley and went on to become the first student in Wellesley College history to deliver the commencement address. and then went to Yale Law School in the spring of 1971, where she fell in love with a fellow student, Bill Clinton, but she was reluctant to marry him.
He was a force of nature. He was just so big. He filled any room he walked into. He was just the center of most of the attention that ever I saw take place when he was around. And he was committed to a political career. That was indeed sort of in his DNA. And I never understood how difficult it would be to navigate his political career on my terms. I could not have understood it or predicted it. I'd never known anybody in politics. I'd never known anybody like him. I just had no frame of reference. But I knew I was getting into something really big, whatever it was, you know, and therefore I was hesitant.
With some trepidation, though, she moved to Arkansas and got married.
It is just a few more than 80 years since women have had the vote. Do you ever sit back? Does it ever really sort of come over you? You are the first really serious with a real chance of being President of the United States. Does that ever make you say, oh my God?
Every day. You know, I run the whole gamut of emotions. You know, some days, let's just be honest, it's scary. The idea of waging this campaign, getting out there, engendering all of the feelings, pro and con, that you do, because I'm neither as good nor as bad as my supporters and detractors probably think. Some days it's such an enormous undertaking and adventure that it's exhilarating beyond words. You can't even imagine that it's you doing this. Most days it's you know, pretty humbling and daunting at the same time. I cannot tell you how many women have said to me, you know, this is not just about you, this is about us, or this is about me. And I know exactly what they're talking about. I get it, because, look, I'm not asking for any special privilege or break. I'm out there competing with, you know, the men the way I used to compete with the boys in my neighborhood. But it is challenging.